Good morning and good afternoon. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, friends and colleagues, welcome to IVI's 2021 State Forum.
Before we begin, we would like to ask our guests on Zoom to kindly mute your microphones until you are invited to speak.
We'll now begin the forum with welcome remarks from Mr. George Bickerstaff, Chairman of IVI's Board of Trustees.
Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, as Chairperson of the IVI Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome you virtually to the 2021 State Forum. Thank you for joining us today. Each year, we host the State Forum to commemorate the IVI Establishment Agreement, which was first opened for signature at the United Nations in October 1996. Since then, 36 countries and the World Health Organization have signed, ratified, or ceded to the IVI Establishment Agreement, and that number continues to grow each year. Last year, Finland joined IVI as a state party and state funder. This year, Bangladesh, one of our IVI original signatories, ratified the IVI Establishment Agreement, and the governments of Argentina, Colombia, and the United Arab Emirates have expressed their intentions to accede to the agreement. As part of that growth, IVI is developing its next 5-year strategy and revisiting its role and practices as an international organization, including ways to provide our state parties with more prominent roles in strategy shaping and institutional governance. IVI's growth is, of course, tied to the enduring COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused over 4.5 million deaths globally and continues to threaten the lives of people everywhere. The COVAX facilities and other forms of vaccine diplomacy have helped countries secure a remarkable number of COVID-19 vaccine doses. But over half the world's population has yet to receive a single dose. There is growing recognition that expanding vaccine R&D and manufacturing capacity to more countries is a critical component of ending the COVID-19 pandemic and establishing a new global infrastructure that can prevent future pandemics. This year's State Forum serves two purposes. First, we've invited Director General Pek Lin Song of the Vaccine Innovative Technology Alliance, Korea, and Mr. Sai D. Prasad, President of the Developing Country Vaccine Manufacturers Network, to share their expertise on how we can expand vaccine manufacturing capacity to more countries. Second, we've invited representatives of IVI state parties to share their country's priorities for vaccine development and express their positions on how IVI can best serve the international community. Through the State Forum, I hope we can explore and develop new opportunities for IVI and its partners to work together towards achieving our common global health goals, especially the equitable availability and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines on a global scale. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to our dialogue.
Thank you, Mr. Bickerstaff. And now we are honored to invite Professor Krishnaswamy Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, to deliver his congratulatory remarks.
Mr. George Bickerstaff, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the International Vaccine Institute, my friend Dr. Jerome Kim, Director General of the IVI, distinguished scientists, colleagues, representatives from various governments and embassies, including my colleague Ms. Ranganathan from the Embassy of India. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today at this State Forum event, whose message is that until everyone is safe, no one is safe. And this forum highlights the global needs and IVI's potential contributions and already ongoing contributions. India, as you know, is a major vaccine developer and exporter. It has also become today, during the pandemic, a major vaccine innovator. Yet the force of the pandemic has been such that such capabilities need to be spread across the globe and partnerships are needed if we have to meet the demands of all the countries in the world. Today we have a big challenge of equity and access. There are many countries in the north who have extraordinary capacities in vaccine production, and we are faced with the challenge today that there are many countries in the south who still don't have access to vaccines. This access and equity must be there if the world is to be safe. Going forward, we have enormous challenges which we can overcome if we work together. And quite simply, this means that institutions such as IVI should partner with countries such as India and other countries in the world into developing vaccines and mitigating market risk, so that should there be another tragedy, another epidemic or another pandemic, we are much better prepared at very early stages for vaccines. We know through work by many global organizations what are the potential risks, what are the potential sites where pandemics can start, and therefore along with vaccine development we must also ensure good surveillance, nips early stage spread in the bud, and also ensures that public health measures, public health capabilities are strengthened all over the world. With this, I would wish my colleagues at IVI all the best for a great meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vijay Raghavan. Now, we are equally honored to invite Dr. Gun Jun-wook, President of Korea National Institute of Health, to deliver his congratulatory remarks.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on the occasion of the 24th anniversary of the establishment of the International Vaccine Institute, I would like to express my congratulations to IVI, our fellow state parties and signatories, and our global health partners. Over the past 24 years, IVI has made important achievements in global health that include development of the world's first low-cost oral cholera vaccine, establishment of the product development partnership model in Asia, and strengthened capacity of developing countries in the vaccine spectrum. Today, IVI's innovative work continues. IVI's typhoid conjugate vaccine, co-developed with Korea's SK Bioscience, is undergoing licensure review and will become available for use in the near future. In the context of COVID-19, IVI is supporting the development and clinical trial of numerous COVID-19 vaccines, many of which were developed in Korea, while providing COVID-19 surveillance and capacity building support to the health systems of many countries in Africa and Asia. The COVID-19 pandemic, which will affect every country, has raised awareness of the need for international cooperation to accelerate the development of life-saving vaccines, both for COVID-19 and for many other infectious diseases. In that respect, Korea recognizes the special value of IVI for its ability to play that role around the globe. As President Moon Jae-in noted in his address at the 76th United Nations General Assembly, the Republic of Korea is committed to both achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and defeating the COVID-19 pandemic. Our long-standing partnership with IVI has contributed significantly to both objectives. IVI's work to develop safe, effective, and affordable vaccine for global health cuts across many of the SDGs. IVI's capacity building and development cooperation with Korean vaccine manufacturers has enabled Korea to pursue our objective of becoming a global vaccine production hub, so that we can contribute to the equitable supply of COVID-19 vaccines. As the host country, state party, and funder of IVI, the Korean government reaffirms its strong support for this institute. We look forward to continued and extended contributions of IVI to the global health agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Guan. At this time, we will begin our keynote presentations on vaccine manufacturing capacity building in low and middle income countries. Our first speaker is Professor Baek-Lin Sung, professor at Yonsei University and Director General of the Vaccine Innovative Technology Alliance, Korea. Dr. Baek?
Sorry, we cannot hear you.
Please stand by while we wait for Professor Baek to correct his technical difficulty.
So Professor Baek, would you try again?
Yes.
Okay,
Do I
works
reach you
well.
all right
Thank you.
now?
Yep.
Do I reach you all right now?
Yes, please
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. It is a great honor for me to speak in the IVI State Forum, especially in the presence of the eminent presence of the ambassadors of IVI member states and signatories. I'd like to use this privileged opportunity to address the vaccine development strategy in Korea. So a bit frozen. Okay. I'm not a government official, but have served the Korean government for the last 3 years in the course of developing a new vaccine R&D initiatives, Vital Korea before the COVID outbreak, and now K Vaccine Hub after the COVID-19 outbreak. And as a scientific advisory board of IVI, I would like to conclude my talk with the pivotal role of IVI in due course. Let me briefly remind you of a G7 summit declaration. The first and most, they agreed on ending the pandemic and prepare for the future by supporting science in a mission to shorten the cycle of the development of safe vaccine from the current 300 days into 100 days. Traditionally, safety and efficacy provide the two pillars of vaccine development, but now the speed of deployment constitutes another pillar that would outspeed the spread of virus. So from the conventional vaccine paradigm that requires about 10 years of development, we are now required by the whole world to develop the vaccine within 100 days. For the last century, many vaccines has been developed against bacterial and viral infections, which provided national immunization program for children and highly lucrative vaccine markets as premium vaccines. Now, the current global market is about 30 billion, but the COVID-19 only now claims about 14 billion, about half of the pre-existing vaccine markets. And now the emerging market of corona vaccine will grow rapidly. Currently, the vaccine market is dominated by mRNA, but nanoparticle vaccine will increase its share very rapidly. So in the midst of pandemic, what is the plan of Korea now? Let me start with the Vital Korea project, Vaccine Innovative Technology Alliance, that started last year. Historically, Korea heavily depended on import of vaccines, but in time of outbreak, the supply chain will be in danger. The shortage of vaccine supply will provoke chaotic consequences in public health and social instability. Therefore, the project aims to increase the vaccine production self-sufficiency from the current 40% into 80%, and also increase the pipelines of the global competitiveness. Now, the outbreak of COVID-19 greatly influenced the agenda of the vaccine priorities in Korea. Before COVID-19 outbreak, it used to be in vaccine self-sufficiency, but the pendulum is now on the side of the preparedness of future pandemic by the new initiative by Korea vaccine hub. This slide shows Korea COVID-19 vaccine under development in Korea, depending upon 3 different platforms. But among them, the front runner is the nanoparticle vaccines developed by SK Bioscience. The placebo-controlled clinical trial is impossible at the moment, and instead, Korea MFDS made a guideline on the comparative studies, and AstraZeneca kindly agreed to supply its vaccine as a comparator. And with successful completion within this year, the domestic production is expected early next year. So what is the utility of the vaccine produced in Korea? That the prime utility will be on the booster vaccines or the cross-immunization with different platforms like mRNA or vector vaccines. And probably the monovalent vaccine will increase in the valence into multivalent vaccines, ultimately into universal corona vaccine covering MERS and corona-19 and SARS. Let me briefly address to our ongoing national plan, dubbed as K-Vaccine Hub, amicable extension of K-pop and BTS. So the aim is to produce another BTS, biotechnology superstar, in vaccine area. The prime objective is to successful accomplishment of domestic production. Not only that, but also establish strong mRNA vaccine platform. And second approach is to increase the global value chain by utilizing the GMP production facilities, which is in global number 2, or next, second only to that of the US. So utilizing this GMP production facility and the multinational partnership, we will be able to increase the global value chain. And lastly, we will strengthen the global R&D platform, especially with respect to the development of a speedy delivery platform. So the current program, Vita Korea, will be complemented and strengthened by K-Vaccine Hub. Vita Korea is a $200 million worth and 10 years project, and the K-Vaccine Hub, a pandemic R&D project, is estimated to be $100 million for the next 5 years, and will comprise 3 different areas: speedy delivery and universal vaccine and vaccine libraries, which is basically recapitulate R&D initiatives set by the CEPI several months ago. As we all know, that CEPI announced its R&D programs, $3.5 billion on 3 different areas: speedy delivery, compress the vaccine development timeline to 100 days, which now manifested in the G7 summit declaration, and the universal vaccine that covers MERS, SARS, and COVID-19 as well, and preparing pandemic vaccine library. We all know that COVID-19 is just the tip of an iceberg. It's a small signature of the future pandemic to come. And now the WHO established blueprint list of priority disease, and it is essential to make the ready vaccine library for just in case we can be used as a production right away. I should like to emphasize that although COVID-19 is an imminent threat, tuberculosis is the most important disease of public concern in Korea. And I would like to foresee an active participation in IVI and on this issue. This is the mortality number 1 among OECD countries, and the population basis, the instance is about 6-fold higher than Japan. And the latent infection, especially in North Korea, is very high. And we all dream for Korea unification. This can be called a K-dream, but before that, we should be able to develop effective TB vaccine before another Pandora box is opened. Now, Korea recently become a donor country from the recipient country from the ODA perspective. There is a common sentiment shared among the Korean people that it is more blessed to give than to receive, and this is well manifested in the recent proposal of the Korean government for establishing Asia Vaccine Hub to WHO. Early this year, WHO made a plan for global vaccine plan, and one of them is making a vaccine hub, and the Korean government has recently made a proposal for Asian government vaccine hub. And I think now the potential role of IVI is ever increasing on establishing ASEAN hub. Especially, IVI has long established training program, international vaccine course, vaccinology course, as well as regulatory affairs, GMP, GCP, GCLPs, and also wants to expand its training program on clinical studies by Global Clinical Center, establishing the experience and exchanging information and strategic affairs and regulatory affairs. But also, there has been a long discussion on establishing ASEAN Revolving Fund. Probably we have to bring this establishing a new fund into Korean government as an essential ingredient of establishing ASEAN hub. So the two-tiered approach, the Vital Korea before the outbreak of Corona and K-Vaccine Hub after Corona will dedicate our efforts on domestic production of NIP vaccines and premium vaccine pipelines, as well as promoting the national preparedness for future pandemics. Now, the already established training program of IVI can provide the practical infrastructure of Asian Hub of WHO in support of the Korean government. Through this, IVI will foster vaccine R&D manufacturing capacity in low and middle-income countries as a means to remedy global inequities in vaccine access and distribution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Baek, for your informative presentation. Our next presenter is Mr. Sai D. Prasad, Executive Director of Bharat Biotech and President of Developing Country Vaccine Manufacturers Network.
Thank you, Youngmi, Mr. George Bickerstaff, Dr. Jerome Kim, and the IVI team. Thank you for giving me the honor and the pleasure to present at the State Forum of the IVI. It's truly a great honor for me. And also to present the work what DCVMN and all the DCVMN companies have been doing around the world. Just to give you an overview, DCVMN is a network of more than 40 companies around the world, representing 15 countries. Currently, we make more than around 3.5 billion doses of vaccines. This is based on 2019 numbers. It's increased almost to double that now based on 2020 and 2021 numbers. This is across 50 vaccine products. And these vaccines are supplied to more than 170 countries. This is again all pre-pandemic. And these are not just vaccines manufactured for by local manufacturers for local countries, but it's actually manufactured locally, but for global supplies. Many of the DCVMN manufacturers are WHO pre-qualified, around 15 of them. 78 of the vaccine products are also pre-qualified, and this is spread across all regions of the world. You know, coming specifically to the pandemic response, there is overall between the developed world and the developing world manufacturers, about 7 vaccines have received EUL till date. 3 of them are from the DCVMN that have received EUL. The total production capacities of all these manufacturers, you know, are close to about 10 billion doses, and approximately, I think till date, the count is around 6 billion that has been supplied. So, you know, in terms of pandemic response, by any stretch of metrics, what we could congratulate ourselves is that this is an excellent response, both from a technological perspective, manufacturing perspective, regulatory perspective, in all aspects. But there are some lacunae. And before I get to that, I wanted to state that even DCVMN companies, the 6 innovative products have been developed by DCVMN companies, mostly in China and in India. There are 11 companies that have received technology transfers. These technology transfers have been received from companies in US and Europe to companies in India, China, Indonesia, Korea, Brazil, South Africa, for example. But there are also been technology transfer partnerships between DCVMN manufacturers, quote unquote, South-South collaborations, that have been actively going on. And also, till date, more than 50% of the supplies of pandemic or COVID vaccines have been made by DCVMN companies. And this is set to increase as more companies come online and more companies get emergency use authorizations. As I mentioned earlier, what we have done as industry so far, the vaccine industry, is a success, regulatory-wise, scientifically, distribution, manufacturing, because vaccines manufacturing scale has never seen this level of scalability before. But we are failing in equitable access and providing global access to all populations. Today, the situation we are in is some countries and some populations have access to vaccines. Maybe there is a plenty of choice, and whereas other parts of the world don't seem to have that access. And then that has to change immediately. And that's what we're working on. So what are some of the gaps that we see as an industry consortium and as a vaccine manufacturer? Most vaccine companies are located in India, Indonesia, Brazil, China, and Korea. And there are some reasons for it. There is also poor geographic distribution of global supplies. In Africa, we have very few companies, but even the companies that are there are catering to local requirements. Latin America also has few companies, again, mostly catering to local requirements. Eastern Europe traditionally had excellent capabilities and expertise, but today there is not too many companies out of Eastern Europe. And CIS countries also, there are some expertise, but these have to be improved. And what are some of the reasons for these gaps? We are looking at sustainability of vaccine manufacturing. There is a constant, downward pressure on pricing, when it comes to, large procurement agencies. So this has resulted in very, very large scale manufacturers, but only a few manufacturers. So there has been a consolidation in the industry that way. There is also exits by suppliers because, some lack of viability of certain markets. And also there is a consolidation of the existing supplier base of vaccines. And also access to technology is getting more and more complex, but it is accessible. It's not impossible, it is possible. You can see that the mRNA technology hub and other technology hubs that are under development right now by the WHO and IVI and other international agencies. But vaccinology by itself, vaccine development and manufacturing has fundamental issues that make it not very conducive for many entities to be a part of it, because it takes more than 5, 10, 15 years to develop vaccines, and you need to have investments in for that period of time. The investments are not very large, maybe in the $50 million or $100 million range. But then if you have to wait 5 or 10 or 15 years for returns, and that becomes a very difficult return on investment proposition. And also, whether it is facility development or regulatory approvals, even post-licensure market access, all of this takes time. Nothing is quick in the vaccine industry. This is how the industry is. This is how the regulatory guidelines and systems have been set up. This is how distribution has been set up. Procurement agencies have been set up. So there are fundamental issues as to why the lead times are so long. And what has this resulted in? If you look around the world, there are maybe tens of thousands of pharmaceutical companies. But when it comes to vaccine companies, maybe it would be less than 100. And most countries would have 3 or 4 or 5 vaccine companies, barring a few countries that have a lot more than that. So what should we do? If we have to look at this problem, if we have to, alleviate some of these issues in the future, what should we be doing? We need to look at human capital. We need to develop expertise in many, many areas of science, chemistry, math, biology, engineering, medicine, veterinary sciences, for example. A country needs to have a good academic research environment for vaccines, and in just a basic research environment, which really helps. Vendors and suppliers are also important that you can access readily. As you know, one of the problems in the COVID-19 pandemic is that manufacturers are able to manufacture, but some of the raw materials and packing materials and single-use consumables were very difficult for them to come by. So, because of that, we've had problems in production capacities. And also financing. I think financing is readily available today. There are many, many agencies that are available to finance. But earlier, there were some problems in terms of financing. And also a country to have vaccine manufacturing, it should have very good logistics and, as a distribution access. But I have highlighted 3 concepts at the bottom of the slide, and I think that's very important. Because this is a 10, 20-year timeline for us to do such development, I think we need a very stable political environment in any country, for a vaccine industry or a vaccine company to take shape. You need a very strong regulatory system, because the local regulatory system or the NRA has to be strong, because WHO and PAHO and other international agencies rely on the strength of the local NRA for them to procure vaccines to be used globally. And also the pricing overall of vaccines that are being procured has to be sustainable. Otherwise, we will have large manufacturers who have a very, very low cost structure. They will end up dominating the market as opposed to, many, many local vaccine manufacturers. With that, I'll take your comments in the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. At this time, we will invite the representatives of IVI's state parties to share their remarks. For this year's State Forum, we have asked our state party representatives to share their country's priorities in vaccines and vaccination, and to identify the roles and responsibilities their country expects from IVI as a multilateral organization. We begin with His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Delwar Hussain, Ambassador of Bangladesh to the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the floor. Mr. George Bickerstaff, Chairperson of the IVI Board of Trustees, Dr. Jerome Kim, Director General of the International Vaccine Institutions, distinguished experts, representatives of state parties, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to everyone. It's my honor to represent Bangladesh at the 2021 IVI State Forum. At the very outset, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to IVI for arranging this event and inviting me to share our thoughts. As you all know, Bangladesh recently was joined as a state party to IVI, in line with her national priorities and international commitments. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the public sector remains a top priority for the government of Bangladesh. Robust preventive healthcare measures enable Bangladesh to effectively contain many infectious diseases like cholera and tuberculosis in a highly densely populated country. Immunization program in Bangladesh is a big success, and it achieved international acclamation. Bangladesh has also developed pharmaceutical industry, and it is probably one of the most advanced sectors in Bangladesh. And it covers a wide range of pharmaceutical products, including insulin, inhalers, hormones, and even cancer drugs. And now we are exporting pharmaceutical products to about 150 countries, including highly regulated European and North American markets. But as far as vaccine production is concerned, we have just started producing certain vaccine, and we still are heavily reliant on supply from outside for vaccines to vaccinate our people. Ladies and gentlemen, we have joined this institution with the spirit of cooperation and a shared vision of a world free from infectious diseases. Bangladesh looks forward to working with IVI and other partners to make sure that life-saving vaccines are available to everyone around the globe at an affordable price. During the ongoing General Assembly of the United Nations, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, reiterated that the COVID-19 vaccine be declared as global public good so that everyone gets an access to this life-saving vaccine. In fact, COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the vulnerability and weakness of the mankind, and also revealed the need for a greater collaboration among the nations. Bangladesh, with her long experience and expertise in pharmaceutical sector, can play a crucial role in making vaccine available to everyone, particularly to the most disadvantaged group elsewhere in the world. With the technical assistance from IVI and other member states, Bangladesh can easily emerge as an important part of global vaccine supply chain. The country has a potential to cater a substantial part of domestic and global vaccine requirement. Bangladesh is keen to engage in deeper collaboration with IVI and other member states in vaccine design, development, storage, and transportation, as well as in surveillance of public health situation. I look forward to working closely with IVI officials and colleagues from other member states in the coming days to foster a meaningful cooperation among ourselves for the benefit of the entire humankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Hussein. Now, Dr. Cassia Lanzel Fernandez, Director for the Department of Immunization and Communicable Diseases in the Health Regulatory Secretariat of Ministry of Health of Brazil, will deliver her remarks.
Gostaria de agradecer ao IVI pelo convite e aos participantes presentes neste fórum. Em relação às prioridades e às necessidades mais importantes do Brasil na área de vacinas e vacinação, apresento um breve relato. O Programa Nacional de Imunizações, coordenado pelo Ministério da Saúde de forma compartilhada com as secretarias estaduais e municipais de saúde, completou no mês de setembro 48 anos de existência, representando uma das mais importantes intervenções em saúde pública do governo brasileiro, que trouxe impactos importantes no perfil de morbidade e mortalidade da população. O PNI tem a responsabilidade de planejar, organizar, adquirir, distribuir e normatizar o uso dos imunobiológicos em todos os 5.570 municípios brasileiros e nas mais de 38 mil salas de vacinas distribuídas em todo o país, no âmbito do Sistema Único de Saúde, o SUS. O calendário nacional de vacinação brasileiro abrange todos os ciclos da vida, crianças, adolescentes, adultos e idosos, incluindo ainda as vacinas disponíveis para grupos com condições clínicas especiais, além de um calendário diferenciado para gestantes, indígenas e militares. Todas as vacinas recomendadas pela Organização Mundial da Saúde fazem parte do elenco desse calendário. E hoje, o PNI distribui gratuitamente mais de 300 milhões de imunobiológicos, vacinas, soros e imunoglobulinas por ano para todo o país. Esse quantitativo não inclui as vacinas Covid-19, que atualmente é de 253,8 milhões de doses. Apesar dos avanços encontrados na área de vacinação, com redução drástica de muitas doenças e óbitos evitáveis por vacinação, ainda restam muitos desafios. O primeiro deles é a organização da distribuição anual de milhões de imunobiológicos num país de dimensões continentais como o Brasil, com grandes diferenças regionais e que necessita, portanto, de uma cadeia de rede de frio para o recebimento, armazenamento, distribuição e transporte de forma oportuna e eficiente, assegurando a preservação das características originais dos imunobiológicos e a segurança dos produtos distribuídos. Outro desafio é a redução das coberturas vacinais. Desde 2016, o Brasil, a exemplo de outros países, vem observando queda das coberturas vacinais, especialmente nas vacinas que fazem parte do calendário de vacinação infantil, com queda mais acentuada após a entrada da pandemia de Covid-19 em 2020. Como causas da redução das coberturas vacinais, destaca-se o acesso às vacinas pela população, com equipes de saúde sofrendo grande rotatividade devido à priorização da resposta à pandemia. A hesitação vacinal, considerada pela Organização Mundial da Saúde como um dos 10 maiores males que afetam a saúde mundial, a divulgação de notícias equivocada pelas mídias sociais sobre a segurança e o impacto das vacinas, o crescimento no país de grupos anti-vacinas, especialmente relacionados às vacinas Covid-19, além do receio da população em buscar os postos de vacinação devido à pandemia. Portanto, a necessidade de ações voltadas para incrementar a capacidade dos profissionais de saúde que trabalham com vacinação para as melhores e mais seguras práticas de vacinação, assim como uma resposta efetiva da área de comunicação voltada para promover os benefícios e a importância das vacinas. Sem uma forte sensibilização da população por meio de campanhas informativas, tratando a importância de vacinar o grupo prioritário, corre-se o risco de não alcançarmos a proteção necessária contra as doenças imunopreveníveis. Outra questão importante é a qualidade do sistema de informação do Programa Nacional de Imunização, fundamental para o monitoramento das coberturas vacinais e para a vigilância do processo de vacinação no país, ressaltando-se o acompanhamento dos eventos adversos pós-vacinação, componente fundamental para o sucesso do PNI. Destacam-se as seguintes ações prioritárias na área de imunização do país: fortalecer iniciativas de vigilância em saúde e o desenvolvimento de vacinas, bem como a resposta oportuna às emergências de saúde pública no campo de doenças preveníveis por vacina, fortalecer a rede de frio para o recebimento, armazenamento, distribuição e transporte de forma oportuna e eficiente, assegurando a preservação das características originais dos imunobiológicos, aprimorar a vigilância e o monitoramento da cobertura vacinal, incorporando estratégias, sistemas e programas informatizados nas análises e disseminação dos dados, desenvolver ações de comunicação inovadoras e estratégicas com o intuito de mobilizar a população e ampliar a confiança nas vacinas e o acesso aos serviços, incrementar ações voltadas para o combate às fake news. Qualificar recursos humanos para atender às demandas do PNI, fomentar pesquisas para o apoio à tomada de decisão, permitindo a implementação das políticas de imunização pautadas em evidências e fortalecer a farmacovigilância ativa e passiva nas 3 esferas de gestão, bem como implementar a estrutura de análise de Big Data para monitoramento de bases de dados secundários. Em relação ao questionamento sobre o papel e as responsabilidades do IVI desejados por seus Estados-membros como uma organização multilateral, o Ministério da Saúde do Brasil destaca as seguintes ações de interesse do país: compartilhar experiências e inovações na área de imunizações e vigilância em saúde, apoiar a incorporação e o aperfeiçoamento de estratégias, sistemas e programas informatizados nas análises e disseminação dos dados do PNI, estabelecer parcerias para o desenvolvimento de ações de comunicação inovadoras e estratégicas na área de imunizações, contribuir com a qualificação de recursos humanos e apoiar no fortalecimento da farmacovigilância, bem como implementar a estrutura de análise de Big Data para monitoramento de base de dados secundários.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. Now, His Excellency Sing Hai-ming, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the Republic of Korea, will deliver his remarks.
尊敬的比克斯塔夫理事长、杰洛姆金事务总长，各位代表、专家、同事们、朋友们，大家下午好！非常荣幸通过视频参加国际疫苗研究所2021年合作国家论坛。我谨代表中国驻韩国大使馆，预祝此次论坛取得圆满成功和丰硕成果。当前全球新冠疫情仍在起伏反复，疫苗是人类战胜疫情的重要武器。 作为最早研发出新冠疫苗的国家之一，中国坚决落实习近平主席关于中国疫苗作为全球公共产品的郑重承诺，在全球最急需的时候，克服自身的巨大困难，最早向全世界提供疫苗。目前中国已向超过100个国家、国际组织和新冠疫苗实施计划提供了超过12.8亿剂疫苗。习近平主席日前宣布，中国全年将通过对外提供20亿剂疫苗，向实施计划捐赠1亿美元基础上，年内将向发展中国家无偿捐赠1亿剂疫苗。中国同时致力于同发展中国家开展合作生产，已有多个项目在亚非拉地区落地。为推进全球疫苗公平合理分配，实现疫苗在发展中国家的可及性和可负担性，建立全球疫苗屏障作出重要贡献。新冠疫苗接种是人类历史上最大规模的免疫接种，需要各国政府、企业和国际组织团结协作，形成合力。我们要秉持人类卫生健康共同体理念，坚持疫苗全球公共产品属性，摒弃疫苗民族主义，推进疫苗全球公平可及。要以实际行动帮助广大发展中国家，特别是最不发达国家获得疫苗，并通过联合研发、授权生产、技术转让等方式提升其造血能力，消除疫苗鸿沟。要继续加强疫苗科普，尊重世卫组织紧急使用清单等认证制度，反对虚假信息和疫苗歧视，增强民众接种信心，提升接种速度，加快构建起免疫屏障。中方积极评价国际疫苗研究所成立以来为全球流行病防治和全球卫生事业所做贡献，赞赏韩国作为东道国为国际疫苗研究所提供的支持。作为最早一批加入国际疫苗研究所建立协定的国家之一，中国与国际疫苗研究所在疫苗研发、推广、国际认证和人才培养等方面开展了有效的交流与合作。在全球抗疫的关键时刻，中方支持国际疫苗研究所继续在新冠疫苗研发和普及等方面开展工作，期待国际疫苗研究所与世界卫生组织等国际机构和各国专业机构充分合作，在疫苗应对变种病毒有效性研究、疫苗改良和下一代疫苗研发、发展中国家疫苗研发和生产能力建设、疫苗科普和应对疫苗犹豫等领域发挥更大的作用。中方愿同国际疫苗研究所一道，继续为全球抗疫做出积极贡献。抗击疫情，各国有责，享有疫苗，人人平等。新冠疫情是全球性挑战，国际社会理应予以发展中国家更多的关注与支持。期待各方通过此次论坛进一步探讨疫苗国际合作方案，解决疫苗产能和分配问题，为发展中国家实现疫苗可及性和可负担性提供更多的机遇，为人类早日战胜疫情做出新贡献。谢谢大家。
Thank you, Ambassador Singh. Now, Ms. Oti Kuibasniemi, Director for International Affairs at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health of Finland, will deliver her remarks.
Mr. Chairman, Director General, Your Excellencies, colleagues, the COVID-19 pandemic has underlined the importance of multilateral cooperation in global health security. COVID-19 vaccines are a global public good. Considering the level of public funding allocated to COVID-19 vaccine research, development, and manufacturing, there is a moral imperative to ensure equitable access to vaccines. The Finnish government is strongly committed to vaccine solidarity. This commitment is directed through three main channels. First, we give financial support to our international partners such as WHO. Second, Finland has pledged 12 million euros in financial support and is also donating more than 3.5 million vaccine doses to COVAX. Our national research and development strategy in the life sciences, we are increasing our funding with the aim of reaching the goal of 4% of GDP by. This includes support to research for COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics. In order to strengthen clinical research activities, we have set up a new vaccine research center. This center facilitates both basic and applied research and uses our broad-based registries to study the efficacy and safety of vaccines. Manufacturing of vaccines requires highly specialized skills, technologies, and resources. As we have heard today, important efforts to expand the geographical diversity of local vaccine manufacturing have been initiated. As part of our chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers this year, Finland has actively promoted regional collaboration in readiness and health security. The Nordic countries are examining the potential for collaboration for innovation and production of vaccines. I have the honor of serving in the IVI Board of Trustees. My government believes that IVI has a unique role within the global health architecture. IVI brings together different actors to protect the most vulnerable and aims to secure vaccines against diseases with high public health importance and with limited commercial potential. It is essential that IVI participates actively in the ongoing processes redefining this architecture. Finland is pleased to collaborate with IVI and the members of the IVI family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuevas-Niemi. Now, His Excellency Johnny Reynoso, Chief of the Diplomatic Mission of Ecuador to the Republic of Korea, will deliver his remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Jerome Kim, Director General of IVI, Excellencies and special guests. On behalf of the Embassy of the Republic of Ecuador in Korea, I would like to express my congratulatory greetings and gratitude to IVI for this important multilateral meeting, as well as for the notable advances in the field of the vaccines that IVI has been making during these days and these years. Please receive the greetings on behalf of the Ecuadorian government. At the same time, I would like to ratify the excellent relations that already exist between Ecuador and this international organization. One of the priorities of the government of Ecuador since its inauguration held on May 24, 2021, has been to vaccinate 9 million of Ecuadorians in the first 100 days of the government of His Excellency Guillermo Lasso, President of the Republic of Ecuador. This goal was successfully fulfilled in the set time, positioning Ecuador as one of the Latin America countries with the greatest success in its vaccination plan in the world. Ecuador went from being one of the most affected countries by COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 to being one of the examples in the management of vaccination in the region, as well as in the economic reactivation in the framework of the pandemic. I would like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the international community for the cooperation provided to Ecuador to make possible this goal. And also, in addition, I would like to ratify our desire to share our experiences with the rest of our sister nations and with the rest of the countries. I would like to take this opportunity also to express that the foreign policy of our country seeks to bring more Ecuador to the world and more war to Ecuador. In that sense, within this international organization, we suggest the search for universal access to vaccines, as well as a joint plan for exchanging the knowledge that makes its manufacture possible. We suggest that through this international organization, a joint collaboration plan be established that involves a network not only by its state entities, but also by academic experts of our countries, which allows the fabrication of vaccines to be shared in joint coordination from their own experiences and realities. Likewise, we welcome the formation of an assembly of the states parties, which could serve to better articulate the substantive and adjective work of this international organization. So we can discuss later how it will be its organization and composition. I take this opportunity to send the greetings to our government, to this prestigious international organization, ratify our desire to collaborate in the plans and projects that are proposed. Thank you so much to everyone, and it was a pleasure for me and from the Embassy of Ecuador to be part of this summit. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Reynoso. Now, Dr. Sun-Soon Kim, Director of the Center for Vaccine Research at the National Institute of Health and the Korea Disease Control Prevention Agency, will deliver her remarks.
First, I wish to congratulate IVI on the 24th anniversary and the IVI State Forum today. On this auspicious occasion, I am pleased to share Korea's priority for vaccine and immunization and vision for IVI to have a start discussion about IVI features for countries around the world. Ending COVID-19 is the Republic of Korea's immediate priority. In order to help ease critical shortages of COVID-19 vaccine and better cope with the variants, Korea aims to serve as the global vaccine hub, which will expand COVID-19 vaccine production in short term and strengthen capability to develop and manufacture vaccines for emerging diseases and diseases of public health significance in the long term. Korea is also supporting CEPI, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and the COVAX facility, as well as IVI, in order to accelerate the development and delivery of life-saving vaccine and to help ensure global vaccine equity. IVI is the world's only international organization devoted exclusively to discovery, development, and delivery of vaccines for global health. IVI thus mandated and uniquely is positioned to play a significant role to strengthen the world's capacity in vaccine and immunization. Korea, as IVI host and funder, envision IVI as the global center of excellence in vaccines that can provide crucial support in the entire vaccine enterprise, including disease surveillance, vaccine research and development, technology transfer, production, training, and equitable distribution of vaccine to countries worldwide, particularly low and middle-income countries. IVI should continue its endeavor to develop and deliver vaccines against emerging disease, including COVID-19, as well as neglected disease, including cholera, typhoid, and Group A streptococcus. Countries should be given a chance to access and synergize with IVI robust capability in vaccine development and immunization through partnership. The Korean government has been actively and continuously making vaccine for global public health. We expect the establishment of member state assembly could help expedite the engagement and participations in IVI of additional countries and further strengthen solidarity among the member states. I hope today's State Forum will provide a venue for IVI countries to explore ways to enable IVI to continue to strive toward our shared vision of a world free of suffering from infectious diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Now, Ms. Adari Faisal Al-Jawari, National Supervisor of Vaccine and Vaccine Preventable Diseases at the Ministry of Health of Sultanate of Oman, will deliver her remarks.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Since prevention is better than care, attention has also been paid to preventive medicine and immunization against infectious disease in Oman, especially these periodic immunization that have helped to reduce the incidence of infectious disease and improve the health of public. Oman Vaccine and Vaccine Preventable Disease is under Directorate General for Disease Surveillance and Control, which started since 1970, and we reach high coverage with more than 95% since 1990 in all routine vaccine. In 2018, Oman has success story with 99.9 in score in vaccine management system around the world. Also, since 1996, Oman joined the Pharmacovigilance Center to monitor all adverse events following immunization cases. As our Oman Vaccine Action Plan, Oman Vaccine priorities for coming 5 years is first, meet national routine immunization coverage target, all administrative level, meet national disease elimination and control target, introduce of a new vaccine into national schedule of pediatric, adolescent, adult, and high-risk groups. For example, rotavirus, human papillomavirus, hepatitis A, and Tdap. And actually, we implement Tdap this year, 2021, for pregnant women. To improve effectiveness and quality of all components of vaccine management system. Finally, as member state, Oman has the opportunity to play a participative and collaborative role in the IVI initiative. The key area could be research and development activities in terms of disease burden and vaccine, seroprevalence studies, vaccine efficacy trial, disease burden studies, for example, for rotavirus, and also the pharmacovigilance research. Also, participate and collaborate in vaccinology training course, which will help us to improve this area. As you know, Oman is a center of training in effective vaccine management. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Jawari. Now, Her Excellence Mumtaz Zahra Baloch, Ambassador of Pakistan to the Republic of Korea, will deliver her remarks.
Chairperson, Speaker Staff, Director General IVI Dr. Jerome Kim, representatives of IVI member states, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to attend the IVI virtual forum of this year. We are a year into the COVID-19 triggered challenges that have afflicted every country around the globe. This pandemic has shown how our interconnected world remains vulnerable to external shocks. It has disrupted supply chains, burdened the health budgets, and choked health systems, especially in developing countries. It has also triggered a new phenomenon of vaccine nationalism as countries compete for the same resources to protect their populations. The COVID epidemic has also again highlighted the gulf between developed and developing world in terms of access to essential vaccines. Making vaccines available, accessible, and affordable for vulnerable populations in developing countries has never been more important. WHO has emerged as a stellar spokesman for developing countries and highlighted the need for equitable access to COVID vaccines. This cause aligns with the mission of IVI. It is important, therefore, that IVI becomes an equally prominent spokesman for the call to equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, enabling developing countries to meet their vaccination targets. This epidemic has also intensified indigenous vaccine development and production activities in developing countries, especially in view of the threat of vaccine nationalism. In Pakistan, we have partnered with prominent producers of COVID-19 vaccines, both for clinical trials and local production. And we hope to build on this experience going forward. We believe IVI can also serve as a platform to channel the gains made in vaccine research and development, especially in developing countries. It can be an ideal science, policy, society interface that could channel innovation for solving global problems. It is in a pivotal position to encourage innovation clusters to seek partnerships with developing countries in aiding their local vaccine manufacturing capabilities. Under IVI's leadership, we can leverage these innovations and expertise for equitable gains for all. Pakistan therefore supports strengthening of IVI as an institution and its linkages with Geneva-based health-related ecosystem. The establishment of Member States Assembly can strengthen the IVI as a deliberative forum, improve its efficacy, add heft to its activities, and amplify its voice globally. We believe that discussions pertaining to structural changes would require wide discussions among member states. In doing so, we would have to see how this new development would interface with other international organizations in the health arena, without losing its primary focus of bridging gaps in vaccine affordability and availability for developing countries. Pakistan, for its part, would continue to provide support to IVI and engage with it in all its activities. I thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Ambassador Baloch. Now, Dr. Rosana Ditenko, medical specialist and head of the HIV/AIDS Research Group of Research Institute of Tropical Medicine in the Philippines, will deliver her remarks.
Director General Dr. Jerome H. Kim, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the Philippines takes this opportunity to affirm its commitment and support to the International Vaccine Institute. Securing immediate access to effective vaccines during outbreaks of re-emerging infection, and building capacity to locally manufacture vaccines in a cost-efficient way for endemic diseases are high priorities for the Philippines. Evidently, there is a continuing need for the Philippines to build institutional and individual capacities to steer our efforts towards vaccine self-sufficiency. The need to enhance capacities to constantly and regularly monitor vaccination coverage towards disease elimination and increase the pool of scientists and experts for vaccine research and development. The Philippines envisions a stronger IVI entrusted with at least 3 major roles. 1, to create and enforce policies that will ensure equitable and immediate access to vaccines for emerging and re-emerging infections, especially for countries that have no capability for vaccine manufacturing. To create platform for exchange of scientific and social information relevant to vaccine development and access, and to be a conduit for bilateral or multilateral sharing of resources and expertise for research, capability building, and access to vaccines. The Philippines understands the breadth and complexities of issues and concerns surrounding vaccine production and vaccination to be delegated to a subunit in any existing platform, such as the World Health Assembly. We therefore welcome the establishment of a new member state assembly to better govern the IVI and facilitate equitable vaccine access that may require legally binding commitments. For the next 5 years, the Philippines sees 4 strategic directions for the IVI, namely, develop the IVI's governance and monitoring and evaluation of its pilot implementation, strengthen research by developing a research agenda and identification of priority areas for the next 5 years, enhance capability building initiatives by mapping existing capabilities on vaccine research and development and manufacturing, regulation, and distribution of member states, followed by the creation of long-term and 5-year short-term development goals, and finally, mapping, matching, and mobilization of technical and financial resources based on agreed governance, research agenda, and capability development goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Datango. Now, His Excellency Daniel Wang, Ambassador-Designate of Sweden to the Republic of Korea, will deliver his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Director General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I am very honored to be here today and address the International Vaccine Institute on this year's State Forum. Sweden has supported the IVI from its inception. This is out of a conviction that the IVI can contribute to our shared vision of a world free of infectious diseases. For this year's forum, state parties have been asked to reflect on our country's prominent needs and priorities for vaccines and vaccination. From a Swedish perspective, our main priority is health equity. We strive for equitable health for everyone, regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disabilities, and social status. Vaccines play a crucial role in this endeavor, and all children in Sweden are offered protection against 11 diseases through the National Vaccination Program for Children. As vaccines can only make a difference when they are actually used and of good quality, Sweden takes a broad approach, including research and development, procurement processes, access to vaccines, and strengthening of health systems. But in addition to our national priorities, Sweden also works comprehensively to advance global health. We are one of the main core donors to multilateral partners such as Gavi, UNICEF, and WHO. We also stand firmly behind global equitable access to vaccines, including through our long-standing partnership with the IVI. This, in fact, is one of the cornerstones in Sweden's response to the current pandemic. For example, we are today the largest donor per capita to COVAX and the fourth largest donor in total terms. We are still witnessing a global pandemic that has overwhelmed health systems around the world, particularly, but not only, those in resource-limited settings. Sweden believes that it is crucial for governments and aid agencies to continue to support low and middle income countries to also prepare for and respond to future global health threats and like COVID-19. Sweden stands firm in its support for the multilateral system, as global challenges can only be solved through global cooperation. We are a large and engaged partner to the UN system, where each actor plays an important role. We remain committed to supporting the International Vaccine Institute's mission to discover, develop, and deliver safe, effective, and affordable vaccines for global public health. Sweden takes great pride in working together with IVI to achieve equitable health by providing affordable and accessible vaccines for vulnerable populations across the world. IVI's dedication to develop vaccines against diseases that mainly affect the most vulnerable makes my country proud to call itself a true friend of the IVI. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Volven. Now, His Excellency Nguyen Bút Tung, Ambassador of Vietnam to the Republic of Korea, will deliver his remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Jerome Kim, Director General of IVI. Friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of Vietnam Embassy in Korea, I'd like to congratulate the efforts by IVI to organize this forum and on the achievements by IVI through the years. We all know that the world is seriously affected by the COVID-19. Vietnam, as well as other countries, are also heavily affected by it. But the COVID-19 pandemic highlights also the importance of international cooperation, especially in terms of the supply of vaccine as well as the vaccination in every country. It also shows the difficulties of the developing countries in the access to vaccine supplies. In this regard, I think that the promotion of international cooperation, especially in terms of capacity buildings for research, development, and production of vaccines, are very important so that the developing countries can be self-reliant on the vaccines, not only for the COVID-19 pandemic, but the other type of pandemics in the future. In the recent time, the cooperation between Vietnam and IVI mostly relates to the clinical trials of vaccines. Vietnam is one among the countries participating in the clinical trials of vaccines sponsored by IVI. And Vietnam also has received the support of IVI in the process of research and development of vaccines locally. So, so we really see the importance of IVI in the process of ensuring vaccines for the world. That is why I think that it is important for all of us, including Vietnam, to support IVI in the research and capacity building programs with regard to development of vaccines, especially vaccines against COVID-19 for the developing countries. So in that regard, we welcome the efforts by the IVI to develop the arrangements, intergovernmental arrangements for the promotion of the promotion of the vaccine development, especially in cooperation with such institutions like WHO, for the sake of maximization of the coherence, fairness, and efficiency of the production of the access to distribution and coverage of vaccines. And in this regard, Vietnam, in general, and our embassy in Korea are the active partners of IVI and its members. So let me thank you again for having me in this important forum, and thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Putung. Now, Professor Dr. Balam Bhargava, Secretary of the Department of Health Research and Director General of Indian Council of Medical Research, will deliver his remarks.
Please check your microphone.
Conveyed his sincere.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Professor Bhargava is held in another important meeting, and he has conveyed his sincere apologies for this last-minute inconvenience caused. So I would like to read his remarks on his behalf. Dear Excellencies, distinguished guests, Chairman of the IVI Board and Director General IVI, it's a pleasure and honor to speak at 2021 IVI State Forum as a state party representative. India has had a long partnership with IVI while being a state funder since 2017. The role of vaccines in preventing disease and promoting public health is undisputable. Global eradication of smallpox and near elimination of polio has been possible because of power of vaccines. The universal immunization program of the government of India has prevented millions of deaths and disabilities in the country. In the past, IVI and India has collaborated for development, evaluation, and economic assessment of vaccines for diseases like cholera, typhoid, and measles rubella. The IVI NICED Immune Monitoring Laboratory located at ICMR NICED, Kolkata, has played a key role in studies of cholera, oral polio, and rotavirus vaccines. To foster this relationship further, ICMR and IVI has agreed to establish ICMR-IVI Collaborating Center for Vaccine Research and to develop the vaccinology capacity in India. As far as India is concerned, the imminent need for India is to develop position papers to advocate use of new underused vaccines like rotavirus and influenza that are available against diseases of public health importance and have the potential to enhance health outcomes equitably. Widespread disease burden studies along with analysis of investment and economics of vaccine production must be undertaken so that all scientific information that is related to vaccines required by health policymakers in India is collated and is made available. There is continuous emergence and re-emergence of etiologies that cause high morbidity and mortality. Newer vaccines and vaccination strategies must be sought to address such etiologies. Global development of COVID-19 vaccines, including India's indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin, amongst the ongoing pandemic is an exemplary proof of this thought. Collaboration to develop vaccines for the neglected tropical disease that preferentially impact low and middle income countries and usually do not draw much attention by for-profit sectors is another need of the hour. Last but not the least, efforts need to be made to alleviate the burden of non-communicable diseases through the power of vaccines, and I know that some strides are in progress to address few cancers through this approach. I'm also aware of the IVI's capability to develop and validate the assays that are deployed globally for vaccine evaluation and the role IVI has played in conducting multi-country clinical trials. Access to these resources, especially the multi-clinical trial sites with minimum possible bottlenecks, will definitely help fast-track multi-country vaccine approval and thus provide confidence to global vaccine developers. I wish IVI all the success in times to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we invite Dr. Jerome Kim, Director General of the International Vaccine Institute, to deliver a statement and closing remarks.
Okay. Good day, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, and supporters of IVI. Thank you for attending this year's State Forum, an annual gathering for IVI's member states and partner countries to learn more about IVI's recent efforts in infectious disease research and vaccine research and development, and to create a platform for dialogue and future collaboration. Thank you to Professor Vijay Raghavan and Dr. Kwan for their warm congratulatory remarks, and thank you to Professor Banglin Song and Director Sai Prasad for their excellent keynote speeches to guide the direction of today's forum. We're also very grateful to our state party representatives for sharing your country's priorities for vaccines and vaccination and reflecting on how IVI's capabilities can be of service to the international community. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has put critical gaps in vaccine manufacturing and accessibility on the global agenda, and it has never been clearer that building capacity at all stages of disease prevention and pandemic preparedness at local, regional, and global levels is a priority for the safety and wellness of people and societies everywhere. Our global response to a global pandemic also reflects on our ability to work together. Addressing these gaps, building up capacities, and committing to vaccine equity are essential to bringing COVID-19 under control. As of today, nearly 50% of the world's population have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine, a testament to the extraordinary resources dedicated to vaccine research and innovations in vaccine science and manufacturing. The steady increase of this number indicates our global commitment to COVID-19 control. However, a stark disparity in the global distribution of these doses only promises that COVID-19 will continue to spread in some parts of the world, and therefore will continue to spread everywhere. Nearly 80% of all COVID-19 doses administered to date have been in high and upper middle income countries, with less than 3% of doses administered in low income countries. This global divide highlights a crisis of equity and access that is manifest in the grim tally of infections and deaths, has cost the global economy trillions of dollars, and has created a biological crisis, a vicious cycle of variants and outbreaks that may one day yield a variant that will be resistant to the immune responses induced by current vaccines and by previous infection. We cannot let this occur. We must vaccinate as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, and prepare additional doses for boosters and variants. Making safe and effective vaccines accessible to all countries, regardless of income level, is a necessity, an IVI priority, and must be a shared undertaking. As many of our country representatives have pointed out, there are complex challenges to producing sufficient supplies of vaccines and rolling them out on an unprecedented scale. We are faced with supply shortages, bilateral deals that undermine the efforts of equitable solutions like COVAX, restricted exports, limited production capacity for both materials and trained personnel, and lack of infrastructure for vaccine delivery. We've heard from our state party representatives that there are needs for training and capacity building to strengthen health systems, more robust disease surveillance to support evidence-based policies, cold chain infrastructure to safely and efficiently deliver vaccines, compelling strategies to connect the public, build trust, and communicate accurate vaccine information while countering misinformation and hesitation. Since the onset of the pandemic, IVI's work with COVID-19 has spanned nearly the full spectrum of our capabilities as a research institute and product development organization. We supported the establishment of the WHO International Standard for Anti-SARS-CoV-2 Antibody, as well as the Korean Standard and the reference panel, which are essential for analyzing clinical samples. We are conducting preclinical studies for 11 COVID-19 vaccine candidates and clinical studies for 5, conducting one phase 1/2 trial of a COVID-19 vaccine candidate and phase 3 trials for SK Bioscience and Sanofi's vaccine candidates, as well as post-efficacy studies for the companies Sinopharm and Clover. As the world's only international organization dedicated to the discovery, development, and delivery of vaccines for global health, IVI remains committed to mobilizing cooperation between the public and private sectors to make progress on these goals and to make available safe, effective, and affordable vaccines to protect against vaccine-preventable diseases in low and middle-income countries. As George Bickerstaff, Chairperson of IVI's Board of Trustees remarked earlier, IVI is currently developing its next 5-year strategy, and a key component of this strategy is maximizing IVI's function as an international organization and deepening our relationships with state parties and other stakeholders. We believe that it is essential to our governance to incorporate the voices of our member states and other stakeholders. This belief is at the core of our annual State Forum, and today's dialogue will hopefully be a meaningful step forward towards greater engagement in the future. To our non-member states and observants who graciously joined us today, we hope you come away with a better understanding of IVI and how we work with our state parties to secure a safe and healthier future for all. We invite you to join us in our vision of a world free of vaccine-preventable disease. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Now, we would like to invite all participants, including observers, to participate in a group photo session via Zoom. So please ensure your camera is on and working properly.
Great to see so many familiar faces and new friends.
Thank you very much for your joining.
Beginning to populate. All right, everybody, I think we're ready. Let's count down 1, 2, 3. Well, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Or kimchi. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Your Excellencies, this concludes the 2021 State Forum. Thank you again to all of our speakers and observers. We greatly appreciate your time and attention.
And we hope you found today's forum informative and engaging. We look forward to working together for a safer future for all. Thank you very much and see you next year.